Welcome to Business with Beers. I am your host, Brian Beers. I am on a journey to help entrepreneurs build their business and wealth. My goal with every episode is to inspire you through the stories of my guests. This week, I've got an awesome show with Anthony Garcia, who is an international best-selling author and expert in the sales, training, and recruitment fields. In this episode, we dive into Anthony's book called Catapulting Commissions. We talk about how smart goals are actually dumb and a strategy to make them smarter. Anthony provides some great insights on what questions he asked during an interview to help identify if a candidate is right for his sales team. So if you're in the sales business, make sure you grab a pen and get ready to take some notes. This episode is packed full of some great actionable content. But before we get into today's show, I want to tell you about an extraordinary offer from a company that I currently use called MyOutDesk. MyOutDesk offers professional virtual assistant services, and they happen to be rated the #1 virtual assistant company by TechRadar with over 700 five-star reviews. My friends and associates are among the thousands of very satisfied customers. I get a lot of listeners ask questions on how do I scale my business while lowering my costs, and I use MyOutDesk and save 70% versus a traditional in-person hire. So for Business with Beers listeners, MyOutDesk is offering a free double your business strategy session. Simply go to myoutdesk.com/beers, as in my last name, to schedule a call. And on this call, you can work one-on-one with one of their business consultants to design an action strategy to hire and launch a virtual assistant into your business today. If you'd like to learn more about the topics covered in this podcast, check out brianbeers.com. Sign up for my weekly newsletter, delivering content directly to your inbox. Hey, well, welcome to the show, Anthony.
Ryan, thanks for having me on. Super excited to be here and spend some time with your audience. Let's talk.
Awesome. So it wouldn't be Business with Beers if I didn't ask you, me and you at a bar somewhere in California, I believe you live. What would we be drinking?
Sir. Good question. I know it's Business with Beer, so I'm not going to order a beer. I'm typically a whiskey or scotch guy. So I can list it out. If we're drinking a beer, I'm probably a traditional Pilsner, Mexican Pilsner guy. So think Pacifico, Corona, Dos Equis. Whiskey, I'm a big Japanese whiskey guy. So like a Hibiki, Yamazaki. And then if it's tequila, I could definitely drink. Yeah, Don Julio's probably my go-to tequila. I like the Don Julio 70. That's kind of a go-to. I could drink it on the rocks. I could drink it with a little club soda. So I'm pretty well versed, man.
Awesome.
Champagne, wine, all the above. I have a drink for every choice. So I'm never the guy that's like, I don't drink this. I'm like, I go with the flow.
There you go. Yeah, it's something for every scenario. So awesome. So if you could just share kind of your journey, maybe from 18 years old to kind of where you're at now, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So coming out of college, I played small college football at a small university in California. They're equivalent to Division II football. So I went to school, played college, but I had to work in the off season, summers, etc. So I got my first sales job selling Cutco cutlery. For those of you that aren't familiar, Cutco, these are typically young college kids that sell kitchen knives. They start with friends and family, and then they do, at the time, was a ton of cold calling, like picking up the phone, dialing random people's numbers. I would sit with somebody. I'm like, hey, empty out your phone book for me. And I get 100 names and I'd call them, just truly unsolicited cold calling. This was right before the do not call list became a national registry. So we were truly, just smile and dial was what we used to call it.
So you helped contributed to the do not call list, what you're saying?
I did help contribute to the do not call list. When it rolled out, it had this big training on it. I learned all about it. So I did that for 6 years. So that was my job through college, and then through the 3 years after college. So I did every level within that company, from being just a sales rep to a field sales manager, eventually running my own office for 3 years. So I took a portion in California in Kern County that became my area for Cutco. So I hired a sales team. Then I started developing little mini teams around. It was fun. So I did that for 6 years. Made the pivot, and I wiped out, crash and burn. Totally okay with telling the story. I was not really good with money management. So even though I was getting 1099s that were six figures, and I think one of them hit me. I got a $25,000 check. We were getting paid weekly, and by the following week, I had paid so much credit card debt, it was all gone. And I'm like, this isn't fun. I wasn't really responsible. So there was times I was struggling to make payroll, and it was never the opportunity. So like I've heard people bash companies or bash, small businesses or franchisees or franchise models when they can't make it work. I wasn't that guy. I was like, fuck, I wasn't good with managing money. So I closed down shop. I'm like, okay, let me get my bearings right. Let me get some money underneath me because I'm getting beat up pretty bad. So it kicked my ass. Got into, worked in B2B for a company called Paychex Payroll. Spent 4 years in B2B. Worked there and then was recruited into medical device sales. So I spent roughly the past 10 years in medical device sales. In that transition from being in B2B and medical device sales, I was asked if I would help coach somebody. They were trying themselves to break into medical device sales and asked if I would, kind of role play with them, teach them the ins and outs and how to break into this industry. And so I did it. And then I was asked by somebody else. And I was like, hey man, for me to do this, it's gonna be a couple $100. Let's just, I'll work off hours, off evenings. So I built this mini coaching practice, didn't really run with it. 3 years ago, I was like, I was at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to build something. And I want to build something that's my own, that nobody can take away from me. And so the concept of catapulting commissions was built. I wrote a book, launched a podcast. We're building an academy. And in doing so, I built a professional coaching practice where now I've coached CEOs, vice presidents of sales, high sales performers. And I've built this over the past 3 years to really tailor in. And one of the things that I've acknowledged is building it. I love the one-to-one coaching aspect, but it's not truly scalable. So really with the academy going in, so I'm launching an academy here in 2022. That'll be more of the entry-level coaching at an affordable rate, where the one-on-one coaching, my rates 100% as of today will be, in 2022 will be significantly higher. Really, it's more of a bandwidth. If I'm going to dedicate the 1 hour to one-on-one, it's going to be, really feasible. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Do you still have the medical sales gig, or are you full-time in what you're doing?
Yes. So as of right now, I'm doing both. So I have the medical sales gig. So in the medical sales world, right, I'm a regional director. So I manage a large scale sales team. And so my day starts every day between like 5 and 6 a.m. And I wrap up every day between, let's say 6 and 7 p.m. So I have
manage a team.
I manage a team
of sales reps.
I manage a team of sales reps. Yeah.
How many?
I have 9. I have 9 direct reports.
Okay.
9 direct reports. We oversee about $45 million in annual revenue. I sit on a leadership team that does about $500 million. So it's been it's been a fun balancing act. Let's just be honest. It truly has been a fun balancing act. I have grown in both careers simultaneously. So it has been a fun journey, growing both. And I've never hid, I haven't hid what I do from either side of the journey. I'm like, hey, this is what I do for my clients who work with me, for my employees and reps who I'm their manager or boss. This is what I do in my off time. Everybody has things they do in their off time. And I think it came to light recently. I was with some professional colleagues from medical. And they were talking about all the shows they watch in the evening, right? I watch this show. I watch that show. I watch this Netflix show. And they're like, what about you, Anthony? I'm like, to be honest with you, I don't really watch TV. What do you mean you don't watch TV? Well, if I'm up at 5:30, I go work out. And then after that, I start having my first round of calls. And then if I'm doing my medical stuff, I'm pretty dialed in. If not, I'm working with my own clients. And I mean, I've had clients overseas where I'm starting at 3 or 4 in the morning sometimes. Then in the afternoon, off hours, quote unquote, we're supposed to, you're turning off. And in the medical world, right, things are starting to close down at, let's say, 3 or 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. I'm just getting started. Second win, let's keep running with it. So I'm like, by the time 6:37 comes, I have dinner with the family. After that, I'm fried. I'm typically trying to I enjoy some time with the family. I have 3 kids at home, a wife and 2 dogs. I'm like, I just if I'm picking a show, it's usually because my wife is watching some shameless show like Real Housewives or something like that. So I just join her on the couch for an hour, and that's my day.
That's awesome. Yeah. So let's get into the book. Why'd you write Catapult Commissions? Kind of what was the motivation behind it? And then we'll get into the premise after that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the big concept between catapulting commissions, I wrote the book. I was really frustrated with the sales training industry as a whole. And here's what frustrated me. I had reached out right before I wrote the book. I had reached out to a company looking for what I thought was like true executive leadership coaching for me to be a client. It really was sales coaching. And so as I entertained this coaching company, I realized what they were teaching me, or what they wanted to teach me, I wasn't really learning anything. Like if you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm not really learning anything. I'm not really being pressed. I'm not really being challenged. I'm just being regurgitated a bunch of, one-liners. Like I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is like the hallmark of one-liners for sales and business development. So I got a little frustrated. Then I started looking at, like the sales training industry as a whole. And I started seeing a lot of sales training industries just regurgitate, constant philosophies. And if you go all the way back, the philosophies they were regurgitating were really Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar. And, those guys were phenomenal leaders in their space. But then they went on and trained a new group of people, Jay Abrams, oh my goodness, Tony Robbins, and you just start seeing stuff just get regurgitated over and over and over. So I was, next thing you know, you had people teaching and writing sales books that weren't salespeople. They were great marketers. They were great business people, but they weren't truly in sales. Like they weren't handling the hand-to-hand combat. So that was the idea of why I wrote the book. The premise behind the book is I wanted to write a sales book that was a goal-setting book specifically for salespeople. And that's what Catapulting Commissions is at its purest form. It is a goal-setting book specifically for salespeople. We walk through the entire package, so to speak, of how a salesperson achieves a business goal or achieves a sales goal. And in doing so, you'll raise your commissions. That was the premise on how it was launched. Since it's been launched, the number one question I get asked consistently is, do I provide sales training? Do I provide sales training? Which it's not even a sales training book. And I tell people, because I've had people personally, I'm like, there's no strategies to sales training in here. I'm like, it's called Catapulting Commissions, Achieve Your Next Sales Goal. So that is the next, Catapulting Commissions 2.0 is to finally break into that sales training, sales leadership, sales stock planning space.
Can you walk us through maybe the basic framework of how do we go about setting a goal? Because in our company, we have a lot of salespeople, and our problem, or sometimes the problem, is we set this big goal in the beginning of the year. Right now, we're recording in December, so in January we're gonna set these big goals. And then we all have a rah-rah, and then it's like we write them down on this piece of paper, and the paper sometimes goes in the drawer, and then we don't look at it for a couple months is a problem. Or, you get all motivated about it, but then, you have one or two bad months or bad weeks, and then now it feels this like it's unattainable, right? And then it becomes a challenge. So maybe you could walk me through kind of what the process looks like and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So in setting the goal, right, we talk some about a Catapulting Commission strategy part. And if you can picture this, it's truly a Venn diagram, 3-part diagram. And we break down a goal to there's a tactical approach, right, that you have to have in place. There's an internal approach, and then there's a surrounding environment approach. Those three pieces all need to be in alignment. Every goal setting person will be really good. And I don't say every, because I've read some amazing goal setting books that I think are fabulous. The average goal setting teacher, right? Just think of like HR or people that say set your goals. Everyone dives into the tactical, and the tactical is something like, hey, set a SMART goal, right? Write your goal down. Write your goal down and write how you're going to do it, or reverse engineer your goal
to weekly the most number.
Yeah, yep. Right. So everyone does that. Where we disconnect on that is people do not create a goal for the realistic reward that they want. Here's what I mean. If I'm a company and I'm going to teach you to set, and I'm going to teach my employees to set a goal, am I teaching them to set a goal that aligns to the company's value or to the employee's personal value? And if the goal aligns to the company's value, but doesn't match the employee's personal value, they're not going to hit the goal. If the employee is setting a personal goal, but doesn't use the company as a vehicle, they're also not going to hit the goal. So I tell people in Catapulting Commissions, SMART goals, realistically, I hate calling them dumb goals, but a SMART goal alone isn't going to be successful. It is a great foundation. it gives a great skeleton. It gives a great outline. It's the equivalent to saying, okay, I have a gym membership. I went through the 1-day program of how to use certain equipment. Boom. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be physically fit overnight. So just because you learned the SMART goal acronym and you have attended a program, and I've made this joke numerous times. I've been yet to be proven wrong, but it always comes from an HR component. Someone says, "Hey, time to set SMART goals." We put this whole rah-rah banter email out. SMART goal alone will not help you. You have to think smarter. And the component of thinking smarter we talk about in Catapult to Commissions is take the SMART foundation. Great. There's the E and the R. E is emotion. Is your goal something that you are prepared to emotionally invest yourself for the duration of the goal time? Let's say a year, 2022. Are you prepared to emotionally invest to the ups and downs? Because adversity is going to happen, right? If we look at goals in its purest, simplest form, right? We're at the start of 2022, New Year's resolutions. 92% of New Year's resolutions never see the light of day. Like they're literally said out loud and they fail. They just don't happen. Majority of goals that are set do not come to life. Reason they don't come to life is there's no emotional attachment to the outcome of the goal, which is the R, the reward. So if I'm going to set a SMART goal, I need to set a SMART goal that I'm going to be emotionally invested in, and I have to have a reward at the end that I'm prepared to fight for. And it's really hard when a person says, I'm going to set a sales goal, and the reward at the end is I made $200,000 this year. I look at somebody and I say this: if money is the reward alone, it's not enough to get your goal. Because truth be told, once you make a certain level of money, it becomes repetitive. And money alone, I look at people and I manage some really high performing, and I have some clients who are high performing, wealthy people. And I hear, I challenge them. I'm like, look, if money alone is the only reward, then why are we talking? Because money alone, you make $500,000 a year, you live in suburbia, you're doing why are we talking? There has to be something you're missing, right? So I look at what that reward can combine. So I teach the tactical portion of the goal setting is truly, let's ask those questions. Are you emotionally invested? If your goal is consuming your life, you're emotionally invested. And I'm okay with that. I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to sit here and bash you have to work hard, grind hard. Whatever it takes, so be it. The emotions are you there? I've seen grown men cry because they're not on pace to hit their goal. I love it. That means it's passionate for you. That means the reward is rewarding for you at the end. So that's the tactical component. The internal component is saying, okay, let's be realistic. What if you failed? Because the truth is, we're going to ask this in the beginning. Failure is more of a realistic outcome. You will probably not hit the goal you're going after. If you quit going after the goal, you create a behavior. That behavior becomes repetitive. And if you repeat this behavior over and over again, eventually you're going to abandon the goal setting cycle. Eventually you're just going to be going through the motions in business. So in the beginning, we look at the internal component and we say, okay, what if I fail? And if I'm going to fail, what is the worst possible outcome? So we list all the internal things that are going to come up at you later in life. We even list in the book, let's anticipate adversity. Hardest chapter I wrote in the book. Let's anticipate adversity. And it's the shortest chapter, full disclosure. And I share it in the book. It was challenging for me because the story I used in the book was the adversity I faced in my own personal life. My father had passed away, 54 years old, unexpected. I got a phone call. He was sick. Went to the hospital. He had to have a surgery. He had a surgical procedure, had a brain aneurysm and a stroke after surgery, even though I was told he came out safe. And it was like 1 minute he was here, 1 minute he was gone, completely unanticipated. So when I tell people we have to anticipate adversity, I call, the planned and unplanned adversity, planned adversity, right? If I'm a business owner, my planned adversity, right? When's the slow time of my sales season going to come? Who my sales reps going to call out sick, et cetera, et cetera. Unplanned adversity. What catastrophic event's going to happen that I can't see? And we just put a buffer for it. And listing those catastrophic events, I did mention the death of a family. I didn't write it in the book, even though if I'm going to rewrite it one day, I will. A global pandemic that shuts business down. Didn't see that one coming. And then the third component is the surrounding environment. I teach people it is okay to eliminate people from your life. friends, family, loved ones, it doesn't matter. If you're surrounding yourself with an environment of people that aren't going to be productive and supportive of the goal you're working on, then that's not going to get your business done. You're not going to hit your goal, just point blank. So we have to create a surrounding environment. We have to create the system, the framework of people around you that are going to support you hitting your goal.
Okay. Yeah, I think all that's great. Yeah, I think the big one, it's the strong why. Right? And going back to your first thing, breaking this down, the tactical reason, you got to have this strong why. And like you said, the money's one thing, but then it's kind of a question of what are you doing with the money, right? Does that money create, you could use that money to go on better vacations, maybe or more vacations, so you can spend time with your family and create stronger bonds. Is it, this house you want to buy to create these memories, right? It's, the money's the one thing, but then it's like, what are they actually going to do with it? And then what are they looking to solve? Like you said, what is the, what's missing that they're really striving for? And, going down those questions to figure out what the deepest thing they're searching for is key. So I think that's great. And then, internal, what if they fail? And, then you could become a quitter by default, right? If you set this goal and you just give up. And if that becomes your habit now, instead of working harder, you quit, and then you quit in all these other things in your life. And then if that becomes your MO, you're never going to achieve, what you're seeking. So I think that's all good stuff. And you cut out people, cut the cancer off if it's bad, reading Good to Great now. And that's a big part of these companies that grow. They gotta cut out people. So it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I love the concept in Good to Great, right? First two, then what, right? So you look at it and you say, okay, who am I going to be surrounding myself? I'm going to eliminate people. I'm going to cut these people off. And it's funny. I've taken that approach, literally said, okay, how can I apply this to my personal life? And I think that's where top performers in sales outperform their peers. They look at themselves as their own business. I'm the CEO of my own business. I don't care what sales company you work for, right? If you're a salesperson and you get paid on commission, you're the CEO of your own business. You may have to work for a company. Let's call it your board of directors. You may have rules to follow. You may have comp plans to adjust to, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you get paid for the results you perform, then you're the CEO. And those that are top performers do exactly what you said the big companies do. They trim off the fat. They cut out the negative. They cut out cancers. And to do that on an internal level, Brian, that's tough, because I've had some conversations with clients where you're like, hey man, my spouse isn't on board with what I want to do. And I'm like, look, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if you're going to hit it. And they're just looking at me. I don't even want to retain you as a client, because I'm always going to be battling the internal influences or the familiar influences. And I'm not a miracle worker. Like you have to have that grit to say, this is what I'm doing. This is what, get on board. Let's get on board together. Right. Or abandon the goal or abandon the relationship. And that's not a decision that you hire me to make. So,
yep. So when you're building out your team and you're looking to bring on a new salesperson, what are some of the qualities that you're looking for kind of in that person? And I guess it becomes, can you develop someone who has kind of this basis, or are you kind of looking for people who are already kind of have an established track record, mindset, all these things? Which way do you go?
Yeah, really, really good. So I look 100%. The biggest thing that I look for when I hire a salesperson is, can they handle adversity? That's like the number one thing. Can this person handle adversity? And I uncover how they handle adversity through various backgrounds, previous jobs, were they an athlete in a prior life? What biggest failures they've had? So much so, Brian, that I ask everybody that I interview, I literally say this: can you walk me through the greatest adversity you've ever faced? How'd you overcome? It can be personal, professional, essentially whatever you're comfortable sharing with me. And I'll tell you what, if someone gives me a fluff adversity answer, like, oh, I didn't hit quota last year, I was really frustrated, blah, blah, and I've heard it before, I look at them and I say, hey, I just want to let you know something. This is one of the most important conversations that we're going to have throughout this interview process. Are you sure that's going to be your answer? And they look at me and I'm like, and I've gotten really deep answers, right? I mean, people have shared the loss of a parent. People have shared, losing their scholarship, to a collegiate program the night before they were accepted because they tested positive for THC on an unplanned drug test. I mean, I'm hearing, you start peeling layers back and you start learning about people. When I hear that someone can go through adversity, they've passed that first check for me, because sales is adversity. No matter what anyone says, we get told no more than we get told yes. You get asked to go out, right? If you're putting your business plan, and Brian, you have businesses. If your business plan says, okay, great, we're going to grow 8% in the next quarter, right? Where is that 8% going to come from, right? There could be some pricing, there could be some marketing, but at the root core of it, someone has to execute. That's the salesperson. You're going to get told no more than you get told yes. You're going to face adversity all year long. You're going to get beat up, whatever it is. So can you handle that adversity? Then the second component is, if you can handle adversity, are you coachable? And then the third component is, if you're handling adversity and you're coachable, what is the external motivations to work hard? So those are three things that I uncover during an interview process with the salesperson that I'm going to hire. And it's funny because I've sat with people that are like, hey man, I look, the previous track record of success. Yeah, it carries some weight. Full disclosure, I'm contemplating hiring somebody right now for Catapulting Commissions that has an average track record at best, but it's checked every other box for me. And I, at point blank in the interview, I shared with the person, I'm like, look, you're asking me to gamble with you on my own company. Like this is my personal business I built that I'm a bankroll to bring you on to help build my Catapulting Commissions Academy. Help me understand why. So I have no problem when someone has a shoddy track record of success. Like, if you can articulate and give me the reasons why, I get it. There's something we said, previous success dictates future success. But I look at it as this: behaviors change, businesses change, people mature. Who I am today, I'm 38 years old, isn't who I was when I was 28 years old. Definitely wasn't who I was when I was, 18 and 19 years old trying to sell Cutco knives. And I think I started hiring people for Cutco at 20. I was a schmuck, but we grow. Who I was as a person, I've always been able to face and adapt to adversity. Like, it's never really put me down. So that's why some of those things, I look more from the behavior component than the awards. The awards are valuable. They're cool, but that's what I look for.
Okay. And you believe you get the right guy who's coachable, maybe doesn't even have a lot of sales experience, but you put him through maybe Catapult Commissions or whatever the course is, you can get him up to the level that he's a performer?
Yes and no. It depends on what I'm hiring for, right? So if in my career, I've hired for tenured sales professionals. So if I'm hiring for a tenured sales professional, I typically want them to have sales training from somebody else, because I don't want to take that bandwidth on and train them. So I do look for like a previous sales training program from either a reputable company, a reputable training program. Like, I want to know that this person knows how to sell. I don't want to teach sales 101. I want to teach sales 501. Like, you got the basics. All right, let's ride with me. Let's get together. Let's go in the car. Let's go visit. And if I could take you, and I know I could, let's say, Brian, me and you go on a call. We go visit a big client. We're negotiating a deal. I mean, you and I were having a conversation, and, after the call, we break down and we decipher. And I look at you and I say, Brian, what were your thoughts? And you articulate something to me that tells me you're a salesperson, something like this. I didn't hear them say this. The reason we're moving this direction is why. Or you could hear the salesperson, an advanced salesperson, thinks about a sales process much differently than a new salesperson. A new salesperson is very transaction based. Yes, buy, no, yep. Move forward, right? I've hired for those people. So in those situations, previous sales experience is something I look for. It's like it's almost a pre-qualifier before we even get to the point with me. If I'm hiring an entry-level salesperson, then what I just shared right now is 100% where I'm going on. And, the coachability factor is really where I say, okay, can this person learn sales? Sales as a skill, and I'm going to, as someone who's launching a Catapulting Commissions Academy, and I actually have it outlined in my script as a time where I'm recording it next week. Sales isn't hard. I'm just going to be really brutally honest. Selling is not difficult. Being rejected over and over again and asked to do it again, that's difficult. To sell, simple. It's a skill set you develop, and it's fun. It's easy. And once you get good at it, you enjoy it. The mental component of it that beats you up, that's what's difficult. And so that's why I look for the adversity and the coachability factor.
Yep. Yeah. We always say it's like building a muscle, right? And you just got to keep going at it, and it's stressful, right? But you keep building it, and you get stronger, and you get more resilient, and then you're okay with the no's, and it builds confidence. And I think that's a lot of it is it's people are by nature afraid of rejection. And
yes,
and then if they keep having to get rejected over and over again, it kind of beats down on their confidence, and then they now are afraid to ask for the sale, or afraid to have the conversation because they're afraid of rejection. But then, the thing we talked through was like, well, what's the worst that they happen? They say no. Like, they're not gonna like ridicule you. They're not gonna like scream at you. They're not gonna like, people like run through all these crazy things in their head and create these scenarios that then limit their belief of what's going to happen, instead of just, like I said, keep it simple, and show the value, ask for the sale. If you get it, great. If you don't, at least you hopefully educated, you created a relationship. If there's an opportunity in the future, they're coming back to you because now there's some trust established, versus never even having the conversation to begin with. So
100%.
That's key. How much should you have to motivate your salespeople? Should they be naturally motivated? And what's your role as a coach? Is it to kind of remind them of what they're doing in this bigger picture? Or if you feel if you're constantly having to be a cheerleader, that you got the wrong guy or girl?
I'll tell you this. If I have to motivate you on a daily basis, you are correct, Brian. You are the wrong person. Like, it is not my job to motivate you. It is my privilege. It is my honor. It is an exception. I shouldn't have to motivate you on a daily basis. I believe every salesperson definitely needs a coach in the corner to pick them up and uplift them. It's an emotional game. It's an emotional sport. You're going to get beat up, right? So I look at the people that I work with and say, okay, what's our cadence going to be? Are you going to speak on a weekly basis? Are we going to speak on a as needed basis? Or we're going to speak on a monthly basis? Whatever it is. Typically, I would say for the most part, everybody who works with me in some form or capacity, we're typically on a weekly cadence. The weekly cadence, I have it broken down as, okay, we're going to do a weekly cadence, and this is a tactical conversation. Business, what's going on, what's not going on, where can I be your support, where can I help you? Through these weekly cadences that I speak with somebody, I've realized there's some people who need a little bit more motivation than others. I do also a monthly debrief, which is separate than the weekly cadence. Say, hey, let's just do a monthly debrief and let's see what went well, what didn't go well. Let's move forward. During those monthly debriefs, that's where I really say, okay, let me check this person's motivation. Like, what are they striving for? What are they working for? And all of that ties down to from an annual plan. So I sit with everyone and say, hey, what's your goal for 2022? What's your goal for 2023? Whatever it is. What do you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? Let's do the whole smarter goal setting concept. Let's break it down. And then I reference that for those monthly debrief calls. Weekly cadence calls, if I have to sit here and be like, hey man, remember you said this, remember you said that, then we're not working on it.
Yep.
When motivation is needed on a daily basis, and I will say this is the only time where I'm excited to do it, is when we're at the end of a quarter, end of the year, and this person's about to hit their goal. A big goal. I just had somebody in my organization pass $350,000 in income for the first time in her life. She's a single mom of 2 young kids under 4 years old. It was October-ish, and I could tell she was beat up. Like she was pretty tough. And I had to sit with her, and we got together for lunch, and I just said, look, how you feeling right now? This is tough, Anthony. I'm working 10, 12 hours a day. Things are like, I'm grinding the shit out of myself. And I said, look, it's being successful is difficult, right? Because the way her compensation plan worked, it was very much bonus heavy. Like you had to hit a certain level and you'd get retroactive all this income. And I shared with her, I said, look, being successful is not easy. It's just 100%. Like I tell people all the time in my career, like the most successful, biggest commissionable months I've ever made in my life were the most stressful, most challenging. I worked the hardest. You're getting beat up right now. I get it. How can I help you? She's like, I want to quit. She's like, I'm at a good point. She had made enough money where, she didn't have to really exhaust herself, and she could have been content. And I looked at her and I just said, look, you told me it was the most important thing in your life to set an example for your boys. If you quit now because it's difficult, you're going to quit in the future. And if your boys come to you and say, Mom, I want to quit because it's difficult, what are you going to tell them? I'm not going to let them quit. I'm like, well, you can't tell them that if you're going to quit yourself. So if you're going to give me your best performance daily, let's work on this. And so every day we would just call. When it was just really quick motivational check. I think you're doing well. Imagine, and then your future pace. Imagine what it's going to feel like when this happens. Imagine what it's going to feel like when this happens. But when she finally hit her metric and she hit her goal and she hit her income, she came to my house. Boys came over. I ordered pizza. And she just started bawling. She cried with me. She cried with my wife. She's like, I don't need my ex to, like, make more money than he does, twice full. Like, she was so ecstatic. In those conversations, dude, daily motivation, it's fun because it was a short sprint. It was like the last 60 days of the fiscal year. I knew she was going for something. That is fun. But, you know, if I have to do that, 365 days a year, it's not fun for you or I.
Yep. So on a personal question, what's your smarter goal? What's kind of the emotion and the reward that you're really seeking to solve by putting yourself out there and doing all this work?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. So the emotion tied into it. So let's, I would share it as high level as I can without trying to get too emotional myself on it. So, I shared with you, my father passed away at 54 years of age. What I didn't share with you is my father passed away. He was homeless. So, my father was a homeless individual who suffered with, addiction, and I grew up with my father in and out of prison. So it wasn't, I really didn't have that ideal male role model at a young age. I got one later in my life. My stepdad's amazing, but he came into my life when I was already 17, 18 years old. But growing up, that was the life I lived. And so, it was really, really, it was frustrating. So I now have 3 kids. I have, we're a blended family. I have 3 kids at home. The emotion I've tied into building Catapulting Commissions and why I want it to excel is I never want any one of my kids or my wife to ever be in the position where we're not financially stable. We're not secure. I mean, my father passed away. There was nobody there to, there wasn't a person in the corner to pay for a funeral. There wasn't a person in the corner to pay for medical bills. I mean, I remember, he passed away and the hospital looked at me and was like, hey, where are we sending the body? At this point in time in my life, I never planned a funeral. I don't know. Let me call. So I started calling funeral homes, and then I'm realizing that a price of an unplanned funeral was really expensive. And so I'm sitting there, and I called my wife, and we were
how old were you then?
This is 33, 34. This is where am I? 38. So this is about 5 years ago. I was gonna say, I better narrow this. Almost 6 years ago. So me and my wife were engaged. We weren't married yet. So, my 5-year anniversary is coming up. So let's say 5.5, 6 years ago. All right. So, I call my wife and I'm like, look, these guys are telling me it's $10, $15, $20,000. She's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm not going to let my dad just disintegrate. I said, I have money saved up. I mean, this is, I can pay for it. It's just, this is just a big, unexpected anticipation. So called funeral home, give my credit card number. They did all that. That ate me alive. That I was like, man, this man didn't leave anything in my life. Like I literally nothing. And he was homeless. I'd visit him in the streets, and it was just a really, really challenging relationship. So I look at it and said, okay, can I build something that my kids never have to be in this position ever? Like ever, ever, ever. And as a kid, I mean, I made varsity baseball as a freshman, but I had the same glove I had from T-ball. Like I couldn't afford a glove. And fun fact, I did get cut off the team, got back, sent down to JV. But I do remember being up there and like, holy crap, skill wise, I was pretty close to being with the team, and I was for a little bit. Like equipment wise, I didn't belong. I was like, I didn't have this stuff. So there's a lot of that. So I look at the big emotion is I don't want my kids to ever be in those positions ever, period. The reward, right? The reward that I'm seeking, and we talk about financials is okay. And this is the true reason why Catapulting Commissions was launched. Can I take my annual income, make it my monthly income? And in doing so, in taking my annual income and monthly income, what will it provide? It will 100% provide a legacy of manageable wealth for my family behind me. And that is the reward. And it is the long-term reward of saying, okay, family, you are going to inherit something. Because if my father passed, I inherited nothing and a big, big funeral expense bill and a lot of heartache. But that's the reward I'm looking at. That's the smarter goal that I'm looking at, is what can I leave as a legacy to reward my family?
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing that. And there's this even bigger thing, which is you're helping other people reach similar financial freedom through, setting these goals and outlining and creating this framework that they can use to create legacies in their own family. So obviously there's a personal benefit, but then there's this bigger benefit that you're helping everybody who kind of comes in your world and takes what you do and runs with it. So
yeah, awesome. Thanks, buddy. I'm excited. It's humbling and rewarding all at the same time.
That's great. So, any books you're reading that you'd recommend besides Catapulting Commissions?
Obviously I would recommend you read Catapulting Commissions, but so I think you and I had chatted. The most recent book I read that I'm still applying different things. I read Atomic Habits, James Clear. I love it. And that's why when I said when I wrote Catapulting Commissions, I hadn't read Atomic Habits. I read Atomic Habits. I was like, holy shit, I'm glad, as a matter of fact, that I didn't read it before, because there's so many concepts in Atomic Habits. I'm like, oh my God, yes, right? So I love Atomic Habits. I recently read the four levels of discipline, which was a good one. If you're like a leader and you're looking to establish, a metric or how to forecast your business goals, business revenues. Those are the two that I've read most recently that I'm pretty jazzed up.
Have you ever
read
Giftology with John Ruhlin?
I have not read Giftology with John Ruhlin, though. I know John Ruhlin. I know the Giftology method. I'm almost positive someone has gifted me that book. It might be here
because he's a Cutco. He's got a Cutco story. So I'm sure you knew him through that. Yeah. But anyway, cool. So where can listeners connect, find out more about you, and find out maybe about some of the things you're working on?
Yeah, so my website's anthonypgarcia.com. So Anthony P as in Paul, anthonypgarcia.com. I'm on every social media platform under Anthony P Garcia, either Anthony P Garcia or Anthony P Garcia 99. Fun fact, Anthony Garcia is like the John Smith of Hispanic names. So there's a million of us out there. So yeah. And then if, Catapulting Commissions is the podcast, Catapulting Commissions is available on iTunes, Spotify, every listening platform. Depending on the time of launch, catapultingcommissions.com will be the link and URL where you can go to the Academy. You can get the book and all that fun stuff as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing your time and your story. And I think you added a ton of value. And yeah, thank you.
Brian, thanks for having me on the show, bud.
All right. I'll talk to you.